Hello. So, my voice is going to be a little interesting because I have embarked on a new blood pressure medicine, um, and I'm getting older. So, I wanted to start this off. This is a testimony about, um, it's like a primary testimony. It gives you a thumbnail sketch of kind of where I come from, my life process, and it'll probably be done in parts. I'm speaking a little quieter because my daughter, my princess, 5-year-old Arian, is still knocked out, sleeping. Um, so, uh, yeah. So, just to begin the with the title. So, my father was born and raised in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and my grandfather was a German-speaking engineer. Uh, my father learned German. Um, he went to uh, military school, actually a couple of different schools in Philadelphia before he lied about his age and joined the Air Force. But um, I and my father were baptized in an Episcopal church. My grandfather was a Mason. He was a mechanical engineer, and he worked on the Manhattan Project under Oppenheimer. And my father uh, was, when he joined the Air Force, became a flight engineer, and he flew with the Kishu Gypsies in the Korean conflict, and then came back and he worked with nuclear projects through the Air Force, uh, running test runs in Nevada in association with Los Alamos. And he also worked for NORAD in Frobisher Bay, Baffin Island area by the Arctic Circle. And when I was 11, he gave me a rifle, 22 rifle, with a sling, semi-automatic, tube fed, uh, 10 round magazine, and through the stock with a scope uh, that he used to hunt while he was in uh, the Arctic Circle with the Inuit. So he worked closely with them, brought back many many of their amazing, beautiful artifacts. Walrus, ivory tipped, small, like spears with detachable uh, points. You know, you spear and it detaches. You have a line, and then they hunted polar bears and seals and fished. And then he also worked in, as he did had an experience midwifing uh, a local child, um, and he almost had his toe cut off with a 55-gallon barrel while he was up there, but and suffered from frostbite. But when he came back, he joined when he was early, and then when he was 21, 22, 1954, the year I was born, he had polio during their trials of polio vaccine with service members and with New England school children. So I was raised by my father as a paraplegic. He was an art therapist, worked with 18 to 24-year-olds. He was a volunteer assistant scoutmaster, volunteer probation officer, volunteer with the University of Oklahoma Athletic Club. We grew up in the southeast corner or southwest corner of the campus, uh, right across from the field where they put the new arena and the law school. When I was in high school, then one of the things I did was collect with my buddy uh, leopard frogs for biology experiments because biology and ecology was where I was at, so I got extra credit for that. But I grew across from a field. Also, down the street was the drainage ditch, which is a green zone. Then went all the way to the Canadian River, and we would go down to the Canadian River. And I would take pellet guns, airsoft type stuff. But I was never a hunter. I was a fisherman. So Um, from a very early age, nobody else in my family was a fisherman. My brother did a little bit. He joined the Navy, 30-year career man. He's 2 years younger than me, so we were raised as a four-person family of four, and we traveled all over the country, and also into Alaska, Guatemala, Mexico, Monterey, um, and my parents spent. After my brother graduated from high school, my parents spent 12 years in Mexico, and we were in La Paz, Baja California. Sorry, I went down there. Even we went down there. I think I was like 12 or something, 11 or 12, something like that, and caught a 34-pound, 35-pound bonita by myself as we were out. They would put me on the boat at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I went with a bunch of other guys. And anyway, so that's kind of, we went to two World's Fairs, New York World's Fair, the Seattle World's Fair, Expo 67, and Disneyland when I was like 6 years old. So we went to the Seattle World's Fair. We would go take 2-week vacations in a station wagon with a mattress in the back, and switch out adults driving and kids navigating while the other pair slept and do something like driving from Philadelphia to visit the grandparents, over to Seattle to visit an aunt. Um, so, so I have this kind of. We used to do a lot of camping. Every other weekend, we would go camping. If it wasn't the Boy Scouts, it was our family camping. And so even in a wheelchair, my dad was very handy, and did a lot of crafts. Multimedia artist. He worked with aluminum, lost wax productions of sculptures. He built lamps. He built a rock wall in our house as a divider between the kitchen. We grew up in a six-sided house that was in the Architectural Digest for 1950s. I think it was 1959 probably. Six-sided house on Timberdale Road. I grew up 719 West Timberdale Road in Norman, Oklahoma. And I live now at 3719 Apartment 3 in Las Vegas. So it's kind of a interesting circle. Um, yeah, so um, I've posted a couple of times on YouTube comments through this whole Oppenheimer thing that my father was a mechanical engineer, my father was a flight engineer, and I consider myself a spiritual engineer. More deeply, I'm a cosmic researcher. Uh, I think about awareness of our relationship with the environment, nature, with each other, of course, my own personal spiritual life, engineering, so, and all of us are socially engineered through this process that has been ongoing throughout thousands of years, and we're the result and the fruit of that. So our culture, the American culture, is directly related to the Roman culture and also to the Germanic, uh, Western European culture, um, and its foundation, education system, uh, corporate structure, military, all of that. So we're still in this ongoing process in the latest uh, evolution, revelation through the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and our documents, Declaration of Independence, includes our awareness and relationship with God. So it's still on the on the Old Testament front. It's like grade school where you get laws, do this, don't do that. You follow the rule of law, and you're good to go. On the New Testament front, it's where you have more responsibility. Jesus came. He gave us the law, all the law and the prophets. Love God with your whole heart and mind and soul. Love your neighbor as yourself. So basically, love your neighbor as you love God. Love God. Love yourself as God's son. Love your neighbor as God's son and daughter. That means everyone. It doesn't. There's no qualifiers. Love your Christian or Jewish or black or white or red, or communist neighbor, or criminal neighbor, or saint neighbor. It doesn't matter. Sinners or saints. We're all originally, our deepest foundation is as the creation of God. So Uh, there's, there's divine principles, anyway. So there's the Old Testament, New Testament, and the completed Testament, which was developed through revelations, through our founder of the church, that the movement that I began with in 1975. And I've followed that to this day. I haven't been part of the organization much, except in the beginning. And through 75, and I think about 1982, when I went to the 2075 blessing in Madison Square Garden, where I was blessed with a Japanese sister. Father directly grabbed my tie, went to a bleachers full of Japanese sisters, and picked one out. She came out, and I had a spiritual. She's like my grandmother Lee, my mother's mother, who taught Sunday school for 40 years and played the piano for 40 years in the First Christian Church, Disciples of Christ in Tulsa, Oklahoma. My mom's from Tulsa. They married when they were like 21, 22 years old. My mom was 22. My father was 21. So then right after their marriage in that summer, then he had polio. And then my mother went through a course of challenging to be uh, the wife of a paraplegic and the mother of two boys, and two very active boys. So it was kind of a challenge for her. She struggled, and while my father worked in the mental hospital uh, as a art therapist, working with 18 to 24-year-olds through arts and crafts therapies, and my mother had a psychotic break. We were both put in foster homes for 6 months. My dad signed himself in. She was a nurse's aide at the Central State Mental Hospital in Norman. And then he spent 6 months with her while her medications were adjusted. And then finally we were reunited 6 months later, and our journey began again as a whole family. But she continued to take various medications throughout her life. My father passed when he was 51, at the age, at 51 in 91, he was 57. Yeah. And so he had a good life for a paraplegic. And my mother passed last year at age 88. My brother lives still in Oklahoma um, uh, by himself. Yeah. But he's got extended family outside of Oklahoma City. He had 30 years in the Navy as a diesel mechanic or a diesel engineer, working on the big boys, the submarines, aircraft carriers, destroyers, anything that's got a big engine in it. He worked on it. He went TDY all throughout the world during those 30 years. But he also has been with AA for 30 years, since he pretty much lost his first wife through an alcoholic situation. And it's kind of gone through this whole situation in his life, surrounded by things. And he married his wife, who passed recently a couple of years ago, through the NA. So they have that sort of foundation with a higher power. My parents accepted that I joined the unification movement when I was 20, and they communicated with my blessing partner's parents, and they had wrote letters. But unfortunately, I had a challenge with my own life course, in which I was unable to keep the purity of my covenant. And so it was hard for me to confess. And so uh, when I confessed that to a close family member, church family member, part of my spiritual lineage, I was asked, well, why are you here? But no further. And at that time in 1982, if that happened, pretty much you were done, unless you could cover it really well. But I'm not that kind of guy. Kind of pretty honest and upfront about my mistakes and my shortcomings, my fallen nature, because it's just, we're all to be public people, so we can't confess our sins, and we can't be honest about it and be accountable to ourselves and in the community. Then it really hinders the whole restoring our original nature and original value and original relationships within ourselves, and relationship with God, and with Christ Jesus. And in my view, him return through some young moon. He's the central Adamic figure of this age that has established the original Adamic standard of true love and living for the sake, existing for the sake of God and the creation as a true son, and for the sake of all humanity, not only going through the fire of liberating and communicating and establishing the highest standard on earth of parent-child relationship between father and son with his relationship with God, but also establishing a marriage, which, everybody has their own portion of responsibility in relationship. So you have your relationship, your responsibility as a son, as a husband, and as a father. Your wife also has her responsibility as a daughter, as a wife. I have a responsibility as a brother, her as a sister, and as a mother in her relationship with God, and also in her relationship with her husband, in relationship with her children, in relationship with the people around us. So, these kinds of understanding that each person has a responsibility, but also everyone around you has a responsibility in their response ability. And how you do that, how you go about that, who you are as a unique manifestation, as a unique son, daughter, man, woman, husband, wife, mother, father, to exercise, the from your experience, from your prayer, from your study, from your practice, from your actions, through what you gain through the consequences of your actions, of not only the pure actions that happen, but also the less than ideal actions or experiences that you go through, to be able to digest those and to let go of the negative consequences, offering everything, both negative and positive, to God and for the whole purpose of creation, for the whole purpose of the restoring of human history into a more higher standard of physical and material, spiritual and physical relationships, not only between your mind and body as you grow and train and study and speak and think, speak, act, but also how you give and how you receive. So everything, all relationships are a give and take relationship, giving and receiving between subject and object, masculine and feminine. And they're not static, they're dynamic. It's a dynamic reciprocal relationship. So how you give, learning how to give, learning how to receive. So it's very difficult in our world today. Many people are understanding how to give and give and give and get burnt out. A lot of other people take and take and take and take, and it twists their heart, twists their mind, and it just becomes a snowball effect. So you have good and you have evil. So you have God and true life, true love, and true lineage, and you have evil, which is the inverse of living backwards in an inverted way, where it's spiritual death and destruction, and you feed on fear and terror and consuming other people, using the things around you for your own purpose. So, and thinking about yourself rather than being part of a whole relationship that's not only in the family, in the community, in the society, in the national level, but also as a world family of nations. And how in all of our human activities, how we are conscious and aware of the spiritual things around us. They're not resources. These are living, breathing, and inner elements that respond to us. We're the central point, the highest standard of awareness and sensitivity and responsibility in the totality of creation. And all of that was a gift that God gave us to become lords and ladies of creation. So when we were first created, then we had this process to grow and develop those skills, because all of those things is a skill of keeping your heart open, your mind open, training your body to in your skill of interactions. It's on an individual level, on a family level, on a community level, taking care of water, air, food, taking care of the land and its people. So all of these things are part of the blessing that God gave us, and he gave us one commandment: don't eat the fruit. of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Now, these stories are allegorical, they're metaphorical. All of the stories throughout the Bible are maybe, you have an overt action, material action, but what underlies that, the foundation, the essence of those actions, those stories throughout the Bible and throughout all the traditional stories of world religions and, and cultural traditions, the essential nature is the most important point. So you have the name of being alive, but you are dead. So Jesus said that, and how he meant that is that even though you may have the name of being alive in whatever tradition or dogma or doctrine or thing that you have, if you're unable to exercise and experience a relationship with God, a relationship within your mind and body that has God's heart as part of that, and the relationship with your husband, your wife, your children, your son, your daughter, your mother, your father, your neighbor who is like unto yourself, is each person is a unique expression of God. The living God is present in every person, no matter how evil they are. It's just covered over with muck. And so how do we clear up this um, fallen nature, this this inability to be able to be clear in our heart and our mind and our body and do loving, respectful, mutual relationships for goodness or godness in our lives, and to bring that into our present awareness so that all of us can share our unique perspectives as a body. You have fingers and toes and eyes and ears, and we all have affinities with different elements and different aspects of human characteristics, different gifts, different talents, different skills, different things that we are drawn to and that we love and that we dream about. But all of them in their purest form, in their virtue, and in their goodness that comes from God, our conscience, which is directly related to everything on a quantum relationship, if you will, from a purely physics, materialistic, reductionistic point of view, but also through this essential spiritual realm of heart and spiritual awareness. So how do those things develop? How do we grow those things? So I've been watching, as a truck driver for the last 20 years, I've had the opportunity to be able to watch a ton of podcasts and also keep up with what's going on in our church, about some of the older versions, what we would call the Family Federation for World Peace, and the newest expression in revelation and development that was what was in 2008. Uh, Reverend Moon passed the blessing like Abraham, like Isaac and Jacob, like Isaac did to Jacob. But now we have in a family level, on a different level, how Father passed it to his son, his seventh son, Hyungjin, Sean Moon, with Rod of Iron Ministries, and his two brothers in the Cain and Abel position, uh, Hyunjin and Hyungjin together, Hyunjin being the oldest, being like Esau, and then Hyunjinim being like Jacob. So they're doing a Jacob's course, and also Father already recognized Shinjun as this third king in this three kingships: father, grandfather, father, and son. So and now Shinjun is blessed and he has children. So this whole process, and they're working on developing practical applications in development. For example, the Rod of Iron Ministries, the Sanctuary Church for World Peace and Unification, as they came up, now it's almost like 7 years ago, the United States of the Kingdom of God on Earth Constitution, which is a higher standard of the U.S. Constitution. So there's a lot of things in that. I'm not going to go into it, but I really recommend anybody who listens to this or shares this that they you can go online and see a copy of it online. You can read it online now. So I recommend when you read these things, any spiritual thing, Bhagavad Gita, the you know the any of the spiritual traditions, whether it be the Bible or Old Testament, New Testament, even the Quran, read it out loud. Let your conscience, your original mind, listen to it, and then digest it from God's point of view. So in the fall of man, we lost through an immature sexual relationship. The minute that Lucifer, the first pedophile, seduced Eve into engaging in a spiritual sexual relationship before she had a physical relationship, but experienced this experience without the consecration and the covenant with God to grow and mature to you at that level. And God said, okay, now you can eat the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, because you're mature enough to be able to digest it and to be able to understand and receive that blessing of the holy marriage, of the union between the dual characteristics of God, the internal character, the external form, the masculine and the feminine, that's in all of the creation. And after having children, with God's blessing and God being present in the center, God's heart, God's purpose, God's will, God's desire, be the center and the main subject of their relationship and purpose of their relationship, of their family. When that becomes the subject, and you have children, then you experience God's heart of creation and having sons and daughters, and being able to love them unconditionally, and being amazed and awe and wonder in the miracle and praise and gratitude and love and joy of having children, then on that foundation of maturity through their growth process, you grow and become aware of the whole creation around you is a reflection. We are microcosms of the macrocosm. We are the center of the creation, of the entire cosmos, internally and externally. Our job, our responsibility, our purpose of creation is to love and respect all beings and all creation, and to be the instruments of peace, love, and joy, and respect, and development, and growth, and progress, and progressive revelation in the entire creation, and thus having dominion, not of being able to manipulate, but have dominion of empathy and relationship responsibility and caring for the original nature of everything in the creation, and be able to appreciate for what it is. Yes, we receive food. Yes, we receive value in tools and things like that from the creation, but we also honor this offering in the same way that we honor the offering that a man gives to a woman and a woman gives to a man, and that God has given us, and that we return to God. So in this way, we have a more progressive awareness and understanding of the Old Testament, the New Testament, and a completed Testament relationship responsibilities. So how can we see those be able to go into a culture that is dominated by a dominant paradigm that does not hold these values, does not hold this understanding, doesn't have this kind of awareness, is not engaging in their activity with this sort of motivation. So God's original motivation, God's point of view. So what we lost in the fall, when Eve fell below the level of the creation, she died spiritually. She came and passed this curse onto Adam. Adam accepted it, and then you have two sons born. You have Cain and Abel. So Cain and Abel also, they're not absolute evil and not absolute good, but they represent, Cain represented the first relationship that was unprincipled between an archangel, angelic world, and the son, the daughter of God, a substantial being in the creation with a substantial responsibility in the creation, who then passed that on to Adam. So Abel represents the second one, which is more principled, that God originally intended that Adam and Eve be married, engage in this amazing act of creation in their love relationship, this absolute sexual dedicated to God. God's present in that experience, and it's the original act of creation being reenacted through the union of a husband and a wife, a man and a woman, that bears the fruit of children, sons and daughters. So you have Cain and Abel Cain represented the first one, Abel represented the second one. So Cain is more self-centered, a little bit more oriented, but Abel represents not the mature relationship that Adam should have had, but the more immature relationship. So he didn't really understand his responsibility either. And this is what's so important about the story about Jacob and Esau. All right, so we're all playing out this Cain and Abel, Jacob and Esau situation throughout geopolitics, all of our cultural, all our religious conflicts, cultural conflicts, all these things throughout creation, throughout history, his story, God's story. What is history? It's his story. It's God's story, expressed through man, of working through man to raise us up. The golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, appeared 500 years before the advent of Christ in all the cultures around the world. And it was a common understanding. So it represents the common foundation of all peoples, all races, all religions, all cultures throughout history from, in this process. So we're engaging in the same situation today on the micro level, on the macro level, in various degrees, level, in all realms of human endeavor. These things are going on. So, so I originally intended to start this with my own personal testimony, but I think I think I'm going to leave it there. My baby girl woke up and she was so good. She comes, she peeks open the bedroom door. She goes, she didn't even say anything. And I go, and she goes back, closes the door. It's still dark. So she's kind of waiting for me to come in and we start our day. We're going to go visit my wife in the hospital. She had breast surgery and second one post post mastectomy. So she had some cancer, still working on her right side, advancing toward her lungs and her lymph nodes. I didn't hear a full report about that. I haven't been able to talk to the doctor even. They were supposed to call we'll call you, don't call us. But I'm about ready to kind of be a little more aggressive in finding out what's going on. Because I wanted to bring her home, but she's got a drain pump. And so to pump out, and it's like a big, it's a very intricate, high-tech type of dressing. So I put whatever on it, and then they put a pad on it, and they cellophane over it, and vacuum it, and then they have a pump with a little hose. And she's got to carry that around. It goes around with her. She's taking morphine and Oxycontin, which we are not happy about. I'm not happy about. She doesn't know anything about it, but I know all about it. Um, so I'm cautioning her. I trust her responsibility. So I encourage her. I don't. It's just give and take relationship, giving and receiving, exchange relationship, exchange elements, and work together to accomplish this higher thing. Meanwhile, I have a 5-year-old that she's my constant companion. So doing laundry or go to the store or go to the hospital or whatever we go, where we do, she's my constant companion. This daughter of God, this princess of the cosmos, this future dynamic leader, Arian, Earian. Look it up. So anyway, she's great. So yeah, I'm on new blood pressure medication. I had a anaphylactic allergic reaction to washing dishes and doing food processing while my wife was at the hospital for the last 10 days. And it got really bad. It was hard to sleep. They've swole up. I barely got my ring off my finger. I can wear my rings now. And my blessing ring, my marriage ring. Actually, it's not on the right finger. That's why it feels a little loose. And can I get it over there? Do I want to? It was hard to get off the first time, I can tell you that. I almost had to break my knuckle. But no, ta-da. All right. So, yeah, blessing. All right. Blessing those things that, restoring absolute sex in Las Vegas. Father called everybody to come here. And what was it? 2011. Father did a worldwide call for everybody who, to come. He didn't give me any qualifications. He said, okay, all y'all come to Las Vegas. Las Vegas is now the world headquarters for the Unification Church, for the Holy Spirit Association for the Unification of World Christianity. And, at that time it had changed, evolution, so revelation. So first there was an attempt for the Women's Federation for World Peace, recognizing that women have a substantial horizontal responsibility in engaging in these, in rescuing the sons of the earth, to raise them up, to connect them with the Father. This is what a woman's responsibility is in relationship to her sons, is to help connect her, support the father-son relationship. And that's the vertical axis. Husband-wife is horizontal axis, based on that vertical axis. Then children, again, vertical. So mom connects the children to the father. So that's the original position, where everything is reciprocal, right? So there's all exchanges. It's a reciprocal relationship. It's not static. It's dynamic. But those are the primary things that create a sphere, a realm of God's love and heart that expands, that creates this amazing sphere of wellness, of joy, of peace, of gratitude, of praise, of celebration of life, and taking care of responsibility for everything, physically and spiritually. An enormous family of God, one family under God, one world family under God, not human resources. We are a family. The corporations should be family. Government, family. Communities, family. Service organizations, family. All the things that we do, family. So just extended family. And regardless of whatever, doesn't matter. So if we work together, we can support and help and find ways that are non-invasive, non-violent, that are non-restrictive of a person's individual agency, free will, and responsibility to be able to go become the best person you can be in your lifespan, and to build on that on a historical level, generation to generation to generation to generation, until we finally get it together and we can graduate from this planet into the cosmos, spiritually, and also understanding the dynamics like Tesla, all the things that are hidden in the Vatican, that are hidden in the Smithsonian Institute, that are hidden in corporate vaults, that keep us. And this is not a signal by any way. This is okay. This is where you have your thumb and your forefinger and your family. You have, what is it? Not sure. I'll have to think about this. I haven't thought about it. This is spontaneous. I'm just like, oh, you hear like, oh, that's some sort of evil signal. Psh, no symbol in and of itself is evil. All symbols have some original value. Even the goat symbol has original value. Goats are not evil. Goats are created by God. All right. So I don't like to call my child a kid because of the, you know, relativistic connotations that it has. This is my child. So children is a much better word. It's a more higher standard word, vibration, higher energy, higher appreciation, higher standard, higher respect. So, kids should be seen and not heard. Forget that. You need to have conversations with your kid as soon as from the beginning. Always have conversations. Always be aware of your children as an amazing, as your future, as the person that's going to take care of the world in the future. Everybody should have this kind of consciousness. And even if my child spends time a lot on the screen, I don't mind that. She's learning things. So, but I can observe that. And so I can mediate that. I can mentor that, because she's going to need those tools until she doesn't. So also, I always have to remind her about being aware of your situation. Anyway, be in the real world as well as the 2D world, okay? So, or 3D world, or, video world, screen world. So digression, so so yeah, so we're in this process. Um, I can't work because I have to have Arian with me, and my wife has intensive care, so we're all on Social Security. She has, and I'm going to publicly say this, because the green card situation, she came here on a fiance visa, but we weren't. I'm in a truck. She's here. She's not familiar with the culture. She's 41 now. She came in 2016. I went there in 2015 to the Philippines. Took a year for her to come. Got her green card in Philadelphia. When we tried to go to Philadelphia, I had a stroke in my right eye, developed high blood pressure, and the pressure trying to move to the headquarters of the second kingship. Well, found ourselves in yeah, I'd never dealt with the VA prior to this. I did some uh, I did some went in like in 78 GI Bill for university. Um, but after that, nothing. But then now suddenly, um, well, I think it was what 5 years ago. It's like 63. Had a stroke in my right eye. Then getting in and out of a truck. Sometimes you fall. It just happens after 20 years. 15 years, whatever. Stuff's gonna happen. Um, and also, you're used to sitting in a truck. That's where you for 12 hours a day, average. You sure you get in and out, so you get a little. I used to run long distance. I'd get out of the truck, I'd run an hour, come back. Mountain bike in the truck, go do that. All that kind of stuff. It's hard to keep a good diet, take supplements. So a lot of different things. So I had a hip issue. So I have more degenerate, double clutching all the time. So I have one hip's 20 years older than the other. VA takes out all my teeth in prior pre-op when we're down in Houston, homeless. The Veterans Family Support System got us into a low rent. We all went on Social Security, and we engaged with the families down there. We're not with Sanctuary. There's only a couple, but with Family Fed, and with a group of people that she knew like 20 people that she knew from the Philippines that were fishing and they were selling flowers. So they helped us out, even though they did. We have little issues between the two organizations. Um, I'm all about Father. That's my primary thing. I cling to Father's heart. And when I see Father, I see God. I see God. I see Christ. I see Jesus. Jesus and Father are the same. They're one and the same. It's just a new name. It's just a true love of Adam, who has given us, just gave and gave and gave, sacrificed everything for the sake of mankind. To, to be God's representative on earth for all mankind. So, that's my faith. And that's what I got from 20 years ago, from when I was 20 years old. So I've been doing this path for 48 years. So it's not, and I've studied the Bible, I've read all kinds of stuff, lots of life, lots of conversations. At any rate, so, we recovered for a year, lived in the ghetto, all black neighborhood, couple other white people, a couple other Latino folks, families there, no problems. Interacting with all of our neighbors. Yeah, there was all kinds of you don't know what's going on in the area. And our baby was born in January of 2018. Right after we got down there, it's like, oh, we migrate, and my wife's pregnant. She got pregnant on the truck. She's 6 months pregnant, or not, almost. Yeah, we got there in September in Pennsylvania. She's 6 months pregnant, and then in her ninth, for her third trimester, she's coming, living on a little farm. We get kicked out, and then we are accepted by the family fed group, Filipino group down there, and then the VA helps us, and then they're going to replace my hip, take out all my teeth, I have a sinus infection the day of my operation, so no operation. So I skipped that. I haven't had this operation to this day. I use baby pram, stroller pushing to for therapy, walking, 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 and then and I tried to take their blood pressure medicine. Almost had a heat stroke. I stopped that. I started doing more natural stuff to try to control my blood pressure, spiritual work, all kinds of stuff. And then finally, I was able to pass a 2-year test in December of 2018 to renew my CDL. So I renewed my CDL. I asked her, "Do you want to go back to Las Vegas?" I said, "Sure." She said, "Sure." So I said, "Okay, we're going back." So this brother from Quebec, a second generation, who's kind of a not not in the church, but of the church. So he's still, has some feelings, but he's more living a secular life. So he developed construction materials that include hemp fiber to, and they're more eco-friendly and they have strong, you know, long life. And he was going to come to a convention center here for building convention in Las Vegas, and so he paid for us to go there, helped us do first and last at an apartment, put us up in a hotel before we were able to do that. I spent 2 weeks helping him out, not much, but he was very generous, and without his help, we wouldn't have been able to stabilize enough for me to get my CDL and and get back in the truck. So and I was able to do that for another 4 years until I finally failed the med for high blood pressure and vision. I tried to go without. I get eye injections every 6 weeks. I tried to go. I wasn't under any medication for 4 years. Now finally, I go in. Okay, I surrender. Now I'm on heart medication. I'm still getting the eye injections. I went with eye injections for 2 years, without them for 2 years. Had them for 2 years, without them for 2 years, and so that's where that is. So I'm kind of, I'm almost 70 years old, uh, but at the same time, this is the medications that are helping is the VA medical system, other medical systems, things are happening, things that people are growing, they're becoming more aware of it. With all the things that are happening, they're pushing us to think about what's going on, the reality of our manufacturing, our structure, our sources, our methods. So now we're going into a realm of using psychedelics for therapies, using CBD, for therapies, medical marijuana, all kinds of things that are going on holistically for wellness. We're starting to use light therapy, sonic therapy. And, there's all kinds of stem cell therapy, all kinds of things, and they're happening really rapidly. So, uh, I'm kind of at the tail end of my career. My wife's mid-career. My daughter's just starting out. So it's kind of a cool cross-generational um, experience for me. It's not ideal. Absolutely not. We teach get married early, have your kids early, so you're young enough, healthy, and active enough to be able to really roll around with your children. Teach them jujitsu, take them hunting, fishing, camping, teach them bushcrafting, uh, educate them about finance. I never got any financial education. Uh, I'm financially disabled. Uh, you know, I'm financially illiterate. But somehow I managed to do this. And this is God's blessing. You know, I'm not an ideal person in my history. I'm still challenged. I'm still working on things. But I've been able to make progress. And I probably would have been dead by now, much earlier, if I hadn't met the Unification Church, hadn't met the Divine Principle family, hadn't met God's family completed testament age for this age, this higher revelation about resurrection, restoration, recreation, of our original value, our original nature, and our original purpose, being able to understand what our original identity is. So identity comes vertically and horizontally. Identity comes vertically, your original nature, as you were created by God, as a son and daughter of God, for the purpose of giving love, life, joy, and blessing to everything around you through the heart and love of God. Your second identity comes in your relationship, because you have a mutual exchange of identification points. For example, a SEAL team, or any kind of team, any kind of organization. They develop an identity, but that's not your primary identity. Your primary identity is a child of God. Your primary identity is a son, a brother, a husband, and a parent. Those are your primary identifications. And from those, then you have prime directives in your responsibility. That responsibility is not just subjective, it's also extremely objective. And if you want your subjective responsibility to be the highest standard, you need to be perfectly objective. This is why Jesus and Sun Myung Moon are unique individuals. They're perfectly objective to the heart and the mind, the will, and the desire of our Creator to understand and seek and understand to what is our original purpose, our original value, in relationship to the Creator, our parent, in relationship to each other, in relationship to the entire environment, the entire natural world that we live on, and this beautiful blessing planet that we live on, and also the incredible cosmos and galaxies and everything out there, not only in the physical manifestation, but also in the spiritual world, which, by the way, is beyond time and space. So your spiritual nature, how you develop the morphic field of your being, the nature of your being, is an eternal thing. And you continue afterward. It's just a whole lot harder to grow and develop and to expand in the spiritual realm than it is in the physical realm. So you can work through your descendants. My ancestors are working through me right now. They're being liberated. They're being resurrected. They're helping me. They support me. And I hurt them sometimes. I get hurt by them sometimes. But we digest all this process. So overall, we can produce and develop and grow in the direction of goodness, godness, and the higher and higher levels. So that's all of us are in this process, whether we're aware of it or not. Whether you have self-awareness or awareness of those around you, love and respect and support for those around you, whether or not you're working as a team in your community, doesn't matter. This process is an ongoing process that you have agency in, but you can abdicate it, but there are consequences. There's consequences for everything. So we're dealing with the consequences of history. So we can change our direction. So we can use nuclear power, not fission. I don't recommend fission. I highly recommend fusion. But understanding fusion in its original value and nature, like the sun. The sun is not fission power. The sun is fusion power. We have an electromagnetic relationship with the sun. We have an electromagnetic relationship with the earth. How we do on earth can determine the future of the earth's relationship with the sun. We also have a direct relationship with the sun. You have a direct relationship with the climate. And your primary relationship is spiritual, is internal, in how you relate to everything, how you digest everything, how you appreciate everything, and how you move in harmony with that in a BJJ way, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, flow graphing way. Shout out to flow graphing. So yeah, I think I pretty much come to a conclusion. I got to go do laundry, go get some Filipino fish food for fish lunch, make it. Well, she wants sour fish soup or sour fish. And some oranges. She likes the cuties, little oranges, and take them to her and hang out with her. So check out other things on my channel, specifically the holy songs. It's a growth process and channel. Most of the songs I sing, I've been singing. Anyway, you can see previous things. God bless you all. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. May God be with you in everything that you do, and always, you know, try to walk on the sunny side of life. Have positive thinking. You have more power that you decide than you think. So never give up, never give in, and remember, in the end, the original nature, original value will win. All the mud will go away. It'll be transformed. So it's just how we do that, how long it takes. Maybe it's not going to happen this particular cycle, this particular 12,000 year cycle. Who knows how we're going to do the next 12,000 year cycle. If there are aliens, they don't seem to be very actively involved in it, except maybe it's like a negative way. We're doing proxy wars in our world between good and evil, between the corporate warmongers, type of UN control type of absolute control and dominion, externally materialistically social engineering, world disarmament. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. I say you own everything and then you really will be happy. But then everyone owns everything and everyone has an interest in ownership of everything and taking care of everything and the upkeep of everything. And I think this world would sparkle, and just blossom. But that's my own opinion. So maybe the aliens are doing a proxy war in the Intergalactic Federation on Earth as a model. So maybe it's a Game of Thrones, intergalactic alien Game of Thrones, that is moving through the Game of Thrones of good and evil people leadership on Earth. Still comes from God. Aliens were created by something, and they still have ways of multiplication. There must be some way they're doing that, but it all comes from God, the original divine principle. So they all have some character and personality that's being played out here that comes from God and comes from the Luciferian angelic world. So remember, there's a lot of good angels, but the fallen angels are resurrected through you. If you're impacted by some negative situation and you turn your heart around and you say, well, that's okay, Mr. Vampire Spirit, but that's all right. You can do whatever you want, but I have an endless supply of love. I have an endless supply of hope, and I have an endless supply of faith that comes from God. Hate is just an inverted love. So don't hate. Love unconditionally. No fear. The Bible says perfect love casts out fear. So if you can develop your life to where you're absolutely in love with everything all the time, and you love and respect everything all the time, and that's your go-to, that's your standard. That's Jesus' standard, that's Father's standard, or Samuel Moon's standard. You hate the fallen nature, point it out and say, look, the whole thing's accountable, but underneath it, you got to love and pray and support those evil people, that evil manifesting individual, and liberate them. If you engage them in their original nature, there's no place for them to engage in you with their fallen nature. Okay? So that's a little hint. It's not easy. Don't give up. God bless you all. Have a wonderful, awesome July. Stay cool. Peace out.